Given all the games I was covering in July, I had no time to look at the first DLC for Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which released on July 16th. Although I have to say it was partially Ubisoft's fault, because just like the base game, their marketing efforts for this DLC were a bit lacking. In fact, I could not find a launch trailer for the DLC on the official Ubisoft channel in July. They only put out one trailer in June during the Ubisoft Forward event, and that was it. I also didn't see the DLC mentioned in my regular news sources, which may suggest that a lot of media outlets either didn't receive review codes or they were not really interested to cover it. Either way, it is safe to say that this DLC did not get a lot of attention at launch. And I guess this lack of a marketing push was intentional. That's because the Skybreaker is a pretty safe and standard DLC for a standard Ubisoft AAA game, which doesn't really offer many surprises and is happy to give you more of the core experience of the base game. And that's the short version of this review. If you liked the core experience of Frontiers of Pandora, this DLC simply offers more of it. There's no new enemies, no new game-changing mechanics, or any surprising story twists to talk about here. It's quite short, running between 2 to 3 hours for the main story and another 2 to 3 hours of side content. For some people, that's exactly what they're looking for in a DLC. For others, it might be a bit of a disappointment that Ubisoft didn't use this DLC to try something fresh and unique like they sometimes do with their Far Cry DLCs. To find out more, let's get deeper into this review. Minor spoilers ahead. Before I talk about the visuals of the game, I'd like to apologize for the poor quality of the footage shown in this video. I had an issue with my Xbox console, which I normally use for recording the footage, so I had to stream the game to Twitch and then download the broadcast, which caused a sharp decline in the quality of the video. But the actual game does look quite beautiful, just like the base game. There's a new map in which the story takes place, and it has the usual visual elements you expect from Pandora. Lots of plants and wildlife, floating mountains, and of course, the ugly reminders of human settlements. Even when some of the gameplay starts to feel tedious, it is the visuals that can push you to keep playing, because they successfully convey the experience of roaming around in the world of Pandora as seen in the movies. Speaking about performance, I can consider myself lucky for not having played this at launch, because apparently a lot of the early players faced plenty of performance issues, from crashes, losing progress, and all sorts of other things. These were apparently fixed soon, because I didn't face anything of this sort when I played the game in early August on Xbox, but it was a bit surprising to read those reports.
Hey there. Nopsy, right? Can I get past you? Don't worry. I just want to go around.
The Skybreaker's gameplay is a natural extension of what we saw in the base game. You are still a native Navi warrior raised by humans, and you are still using bows and guns to fight against the humans, who just won't stop trying to take over your home planet. The first hour of the DLC actually gets off to an interesting start with virtually no combat at all. Instead, you spend a relaxing time talking to people and taking part in the Navi's version of the Olympic Games. There's also quite a few side quests you can do before actually setting off on the main quest, so you are free to choose when you want to start fighting the humans. Once you get started on the main quest, however, it's back to the tired old formula of capturing outposts and claiming them for the Navi. At least the base game was long enough to occasionally try something else, but since this is a DLC and a short one at that, all you ever get to see during the main quests are outposts. There was only one part of the story where you actually do something new, like trying to gain intel by eavesdropping on enemies and following them without being seen. And if you think you've seen stuff like this before, you're right. These are classic mission structures taken from the Assassin's Creed franchise. One mission even forces you to use stealth at the risk of failing the mission if you get caught. This just seems like a way to pad up the runtime of the story, and my suspicions were confirmed when the game restricted me from flying at certain points, which would have ended the quest way too soon. There are a few issues in the gameplay that have been inherited from the base game, which can't really be resolved unless we get new enemy types. For example, fighting humans is still annoying because you are a 10-foot Navi and the humans seem tiny in comparison. But they have powerful assault rifles, so it can be a bit tricky to find the tiny humans in a battle before they shoot you down first. On the other end, the major threat continues to be the AMP suits, which get a couple of new models in this DLC. Fighting them can be a good challenge, but once you get the appropriate gear, they're quite easy to take down. Speaking of gear, I didn't really get invested in the loot part of the DLC. I know there's some sort of crafting system in there, but I never really felt the need to get something better. The game gave me decent enough gear to go through the main quests, and that was fine by me. The other odd aspect of the gameplay inherited from the base game is the dependence on human technology. You play as a Navi, but you spend a lot of your time walking around with a remote hacking device, which is fine from a video game perspective, but it does break the immersion of playing as a Navi. Then again, the immersion was broken long ago when our character was given human weapons. Moving on, if capturing outposts during the main story wasn't enough, there's a whole bunch of them to complete in the side content too. I do like outposts to a certain extent, but when they are the main focus of a game, it can get boring real quick. One redeeming feature of the gameplay is the inclusion of replayable Olympic Games like events. These are 4 very short but very fun time trials where you can test your archery, parkour, and riding skills. These events offer you an opportunity to explore the beautiful world around you while still giving you the rush of competing against the clock. I only did all of them once to complete the main quest, but I can see some hardcore fans competing with each other to post some insane times. Since this is still a Ubisoft game, there are a bunch of random collectibles and whatnot sprinkled all across the map, and I ignored all of them. The skill tree didn't seem to have any new skills, but I didn't really need anything new since the core gameplay was unchanged. The story picks up immediately after the events of the base game. Having just defeated the evil humans, the Navi clans are taking some time off to celebrate the tradition of the Great Games, a pretty lazy name for what is essentially the Olympics. You are asked to leave your Ikran and ride a dire horse to the village where the games are being held. And I have to admit, this sequence was a pretty good opening, which we would have missed if we could simply fly on our Ikran. Anyway, we are asked to participate in the games representing the Sarentu clan, and conveniently enough, all of the games are time trials where you participate in each event alone. It sure would have been more fun to see some NPCs racing along you, or have events where you compete directly against another opponent, but I guess that was more of a technical challenge than a narrative one. But it's not all fun and games because the humans are back, this time led by General Harding, who was second in command to Mercer, the main villain of the base game. The games are put on hold when the village is basically destroyed, and we soon learn that a couple of your allies are taken hostage. One of them is a human, and in a neat callback to the second Avatar movie, the villain uses the mind reading technology that allows the extraction of information from someone's mind without them having to speak a word. Your mission is quite simple: rescue the hostages and put an end to Harding's reign of terror. Along the way, you are encouraged to take out Harding's lieutenants, but those are all optional quests. In the end, you predictably defeat Harding and peace is restored to the village. And funnily enough, the games resume immediately, with the village being restored to its former glory instantly. There's no short montage of people rebuilding the village or anything like that. So, yes, a pretty standard story for an Avatar DLC, which helps us lower our expectations for the second and possibly last DLC for this game, which comes out later this year.
Target is secured.
I usually have another section in my reviews called Sound and Music, but just like other parts of the game, this section too felt quite safe and didn't really distinguish itself from what we had in the base game, which was already quite good. So there's no point in having a separate section just to say that. And I've already said that about this DLC 2-3 times already. It's just as good as the base game. So if you liked Frontiers of Pandora, you may be happy to play more of it. The side quests pad up the game time quite a bit, and that's not a bad thing to be honest. The time trials are a good diversion from the outposts, and the new map has enough distractions to keep you busy for a while, after which the wait for the next DLC begins. Thanks for watching.